All right, ETM Hotep. Want to welcome everyone to our Freestyle Fridays with the Seshu Ma'ani Meta Nature. And tonight we are going to do a little bit of freestyling, but also have a discussion. And we titled this particular discussion, Where Do We Go From Here? And the question is basically, once you learn the basics of the Seshu Meta Nature or the hieroglyphic writing system, where do you go? Where do you go from there? And I say, where do we go from here to include us all, include all of us into that question. And so we're going to have a discussion about that to kind of give some insight on people who have been studying and may want to know where do they go? What's useful about learning the language in general, and then what's useful about learning the basics and what can you do with it and where do you go from there? All right, so that's going to come up later. But first, we will go through our regularly scheduled freestyle session, and this should be a quick one. But before we dive into that, I'll introduce myself, and everyone else can introduce themselves on the panel. My name is Wujao Meneb Irimaat, and I'll be running point for tonight's discussion and hangout. So I will pass the microphone to our other panelists that are available. So you can unmute yourselves and introduce yourself.
ETM Hotep, welcome in peace, everybody. This your brother June. Just want to say thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the show and leave with satisfaction. Hotep.
Hotep, Ren-E, Imikeraku, and hope you enjoy the show. Hotep.
Hotep, brothers Tep and Rob Mariama. Hope y'all enjoy the show tonight. It's going to be a good one.
ETM Hotep, Rennie Sean. I'd just like to welcome everyone to the show. Let's have a good time tonight.
All right. Dua and Iker, excellent. Just for those listening and may listen to the archive, when we say ETM Hotep, that phrase means welcome in peace or welcome with satisfaction, in case you didn't know. And Sonat Imiket, when she introduced herself, she said Ren-E Imiket Aku. And the word or the phrase Ren-E is the phrase that means my name. So Ren-E Imiket Aku, my name is Imiket Aku. All right, so that's for those who may not know, and now you know. All right, so we're just gonna jump straight into it, and I want to give a shout out to those who are watching. Appreciate everyone who supports, and tunes in and hangs out with us, and we will keep our eye on the chat as well, and sometimes we'll open up the hangout itself and invite people in the hangout itself. So maybe we can do some of that also. But I really appreciate those who tune in and those who watch our archives and keep up. And we welcome questions. Now, if you have questions or even want to share some knowledge about something that we spoke about, because, we try to keep these hangouts, we try to put a time constraint on the hangout. We don't want to go too long because, myself, I could be MC Iron Lung all the time, and then you have some other panelists that I think I kind of rubbed off on, and they could become MC Iron Lungs as well, and we could talk for a long time, but we try to keep the hangouts manageable, so digestible. But if you have any other things you want to share about some things that we talked about, spoke about, or have questions, then make sure you join our Facebook group. Our Facebook group is under the same name, Seshu Ma'ani Meta Nature, and it's on Facebook. We're on Facebook. It's an open group, and we welcome everybody there to share information, ask questions, or if we say something that's incorrect or information that is contrary to something that we've said, then we welcome that as well, because our goal is accuracy. You know, we want to stay close to reality as possible. The word ma'a means true. It also means real. So when we say seshu ma'a, we're saying loyal scribes, but it also means real scribes, you know, of divine words. But in a sense, the realness, we want to stay real at all times. You know how people say, I want to keep it real. I want to keep it real, or, you know, even more. So some people say, let's keep it a buck. And, you know, a buck is 100. So they say, keep it 100, keep it 100, keep it 100, keep it a buck, and keep it real, you know, be real. So that's all in the same thing. So we want to do our best to do that. All right. So, all right, let's dive straight into, let me lock it on the screen. All right, I have it locked on Sonnet Imiket screen. So now, whenever you're transliterating and translating, we always talk about the 4 steps. We refer to it as Tep Hesep in general, and the phrase Tep Hesep literally means head count, but it's an idiom that means correct method, because it becomes the tip of calculations, and it's the proper way to calculate things, to discern. Because when you calculate something, you're discerning, you're figuring something out, and things like that. So it's a phrase that means correct method. All right. And there's a correct method with transliterating and translating. So I guess anyone else on the panel, if you can quickly run down those 4 steps. What are those 4 steps?
I got this. It's your brother June. The first step will be identifying the direction to read the glyphs. We do that by looking to see what directions the glyphs are facing. Common signs that help us are birds, animals, people. Whichever direction they're facing, you want to read into them, like a face-to-face conversation. You want to look into the glyphs. If they're facing to the right, you're reading right to left. That's step 1. Step 2 would be gathering all the data, identifying each sign and gathering all the data, usually using a sign list for each sign. Some of the information that you can get on that is the different ways the sign functions, the Gardner code, also the transliteration, and like I said, all that usually you can find in a sign list. The third step is grouping the signs into words or phrases. A dictionary is going to help you in this step. Also, the data you gathered from step 2. A helpful clue that also helps with grouping is being familiar with determinatives, which are usually found at the end of the word. Step 4 is coming up with the sensible translation, using all the data gathered, try and come up with a translation that makes sense. Really, all the previous steps will help you with this step. So if anybody has anything to add, that's what I got for 4 steps.
All right. Okay, excellent. So, and that's it. That's the 4 steps. Now, those steps that you take, it may seem like it's step 1, then step 2, then step 3, then step 4, and it seems robotic and cold and soulless. But the more that you become acquainted with the writing system and the language, and you show more proficiency at it, those steps will kind of blur and blend in with each other. All right. And you'll be a lot faster with each of those steps. All right. So, but in terms of learning it and practicing it, it's best to view them as 4 individual steps and in that order. And that's what you are actually doing. All right. So now that we have the steps explained, let's go right into applying those steps to our picture for tonight. And so I locked it on the screen, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of text. All right. So I guess we can briefly just go through each of those steps. So step 1 is as June said, to identify the direction in which to read the signs. So anybody on the panel, just go for it. Open, unmute yourself and just let us know what direction are these signs.
All right. Based on the animal and body parts, all the signs are facing to the right. So we will read from right to left.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, exactly. So that would be identified right to left. Now, let me just include this as well. In terms of the directions, out of the possible directions, here are the possible directions to read the inscriptions, not this particular one, but inscriptions in general. That is from right to left or from left to right. Now, either the inscriptions are going to be in rows or they're going to be in columns. So so in this particular case, as Brother Sean already said, that you're going to read from right to left, but these particular inscriptions are in rows. Now, the reason why I like to point this out is because within the row and or within the column, which these are not columns, these are rows. So I'm going to stick to this as the example. But within the row, as you're reading from right to left, you're going to be reading top down at the same time. So you're going to be simultaneously reading from right to left, but top down. So if there are any glyphs that are stacked on top of each other, you're going to read the top one first as you're moving, from right to left. Okay. And the same thing would be for columns. Columns obviously are columns. That means that they are arranged in an up down arrangement, but you're going to be reading from the top down. Whatever direction they're facing, you're going to read into them, but you're going to also read from top down. All right. So just keep that in mind. I like to point that out because sometimes it may sound complicated, but it's very, very simple, as far as the directions. All right. So just wanted to clarify that. All right. So step 2 is to identify individual glyphs. And so we don't have to do all of the glyphs, identify all of the glyphs, but anybody on the panel want to unmute yourself and just identify a few of them, maybe 3 or 4 glyphs. Just pick any 3 or 4 at random and identify those.
Yeah. Yeah. So right over here we have
Okay, just 1 second. I'm not sure if it's my system, but MK, you sound broken up. But is that just me? Can everybody else hear her clear?
Hotep. Mic check 1, 2.
I can hear it just a little low.
Okay, I think everybody is jumbled up to me, so it may just be me.
Okay.
And, okay, so that's strange.
Right. Is it still low? Oh.
No, you good now, Sinette?
All right. Okay. Am I still coming up jumble to you?
No, I can hear you clear.
All right. Good. Okay. So should I just go ahead and identify at least 3 while you sort out why I'm coming through jumble to you? Not sure if you have to come out and come back. Actually, if you can do that, I'm not sure.
So if you all can hear me, just, I guess, keep the flow going. I will try to fix my technical issue right now. So I'm going to mute myself, but you all keep it up.
All right. Okay. So So I'll just go ahead and quickly recognize or identify three three glyphs. So I think we pretty much know on the first row most of them. So I'll just go right here and identify that one, which is the harpoon. And then I will identify this, which is the standard on a pole. And then probably identify down here the other one, which I think that is the glyph for the sky. So those are three random ones that I can identify. So not sure if anybody else want to identify some other signs. This one should be pretty obvious, I think. That one we kind of know. That's we call it the X buckle. So that's the one for Newwood. Yeah. And
How about
okay,
how about this? How about the second to last sign in the first row? Is
in
that
the first
the
row,
rabbit?
I think that is the bread.
Okay.
Yeah, usually I think you see it underneath that this other sign, but so I think here's on the top is like the bread sign. It always looks like the thing is more flat, like the land or something.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that was the rabbit too.
The what? The rabbit? Or when? Okay.
Thought it was.
No. Yeah, it looked like it though. I think it's because some parts are damaged a little bit, so you get like those contours, like false contouring on the stele, so you can actually mistake it for that.
All right.
But
I think I fixed my issue.
okay, so we've done identifying some of the glyphs, and I don't know if you want to move on to the next step.
Okay, so that was step 2. So you've identified some of the glyphs. Hopefully people who are watching now and the archive will be able to follow along. All right, so step 3, as Sanjun explained, is the pattern recognition, which is the arrangements of the signs into groups, which we call words. So so now that you've identified individual signs, now let's identify some of the words. So maybe 3 words, that we can identify. And so I guess since everybody had a turn, I don't know if everyone had a turn so far, but I'll identify 3 words real quick. What's obvious, well, what should be obvious, I won't say it's obvious, it should be obvious, is the very first phrase, the very first 1, 2, 3, 4 glyphs, which is a phrase which introduces this formula. It's a very, 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 very popular, prolific set of glyphs arranged this way, which is the phrase Hotep di Nasut. And it's a little funny, it's a little tricky because we have honorific transposition going on, but just to identify the words within there, within the box that we see on the screen, the left glyph, which is the canonical loaf, looks like a pyramid, like a tall pyramid. That's the word di, or ready, which means to give or to allow. And then you have to the right of that, at the bottom, you have a single glyph, which is a triliteral glyph, but it represents a full word. So I'm giving you the word, which is the word Hotep. And then the sedge plant on the far right, and the raised bread loaf, which is to the left of it at the top. Those two together spell the word, or is the word Nisut, which is king. All right, so that's a basic formula. So on site, you should recognize that. And I'll just do one more word, and let's see. I'm trying to do one with a determinative, and I don't see. Okay, let's go down to the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4th row, and the first word on the right. So we have one, two, three, four glyphs that this word is composed of. So this word has 4 glyphs in there. And how do we know where this word ends? Is with the determinative, what looks like a belt buckle that Emmy kept mentioning. So we have those 4 glyphs together spell the word unut, or some people say unut. And it is a place, it's a location, because you see what looks like what we call the X-Men belt buckle, but it's a crossroads, and it represents a village, town, city, or municipality, a place where people actually congregate and live. So this is it's a toponym, so we know this is a location. All right, and so the clue is that we see the determinative, so it lets us know the end of the word, and it helps us determine the meaning of the word. All right, so okay, so that should be enough for step 3. And then step 4 would be to put everything together that you've already accomplished with step 1 through 3, and then come up with a sensible translation. So you got to put it all together and walk away with a sensible translation. And you try to, pull from all of your resources. You look at the as much of the picture as you can, even the figures that you see in the picture. You see a woman standing, with an object in her hand, and standing there facing to the right. So you take all of that into consideration when you come to step 4. So with step 4, you walk away with a sensible translation. So I guess we can kind of go ahead and do what we can with this inscription. So put everything together and walk it row by row. So we have 5 rows, and so we might as well. Well, actually, before we do it, let's ask someone in the chat to see what they've come up with. So I know there's a delay. So right now, let's just see. Anybody in the chat, if you want to take a stab at it, type it out, and I'll keep my eye on it, or we'll keep our eyes on it, and we'll read whatever it is that you type out, and we'll go from there. All right. So we'll wait for anybody in the chat to take a stab at it now. And because there's a gap, and I don't like that dead silence, want to welcome another member of the Seshu Mani Metanetra, son Jehuti Ma'at. So ETM Hotep, maybe you could unmute yourself, introduce yourself real quick.
ETM, well, Hotep family. It's Rennie Jehuti Ma'at. Just a little late, but here to enjoy the show.
All right. And while we wait too, why don't you go ahead and tell us what you've been doing with your skills in terms of crafting some nice, good pieces, and where people can contact you and inquire about them. I mean, I know I put you on the spot right now. You probably don't have any pictures to show, but at least let us know about it.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that, Seb. Yeah, you can. I make pieces handcrafted. You can check me out at the website at www.thejehudistore.com. Well, I make homemade from wood. I make comedic pieces like ankhs, and I make ankh rings, necklaces. I got a West African line now I'm doing. I make West African masks, and I have some other things. Just check out the website, and I'm sure something you'll like on there. I have a ankh staff, so I have a lot of different things you can check out. Appreciate it.
All right, yeah, because I've seen your work, man. So I've checked it out. So you definitely have some expert skills in there, and I'm amazed. That's some really good stuff to carve it out of wood and to be so precise with it, because that's an actual sesh. That's a sesh job. What is you're doing, except not in stone, but in wood. So I mean, you're right in line with what we're doing. So
yeah, that's one of the reasons why I even bought your book, and why I've been studying the language. So when I do make these pieces, I can put the correct scribing, the correct signs, and it actually makes sense. You know how people get the tattoos, but Chinese language don't know what it says or whatever.
right.
So I wasn't trying to fall down that line. And I seen some like shirts that I look at now that had glyphs on them, they were the wrong glyphs. They just didn't spell nothing. So
Yeah.
that was
So
one of my motivations also.
all right, that's good. Excellent. All right.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, that is real good, and I guess we can touch on it a little bit more later, because that's it goes to our the name of our show. Where do we go from here? So, yeah, that is good, Jehudi. Keep it up.
Yeah. Matter of fact, you probably gonna start graduating to sculpting statues, you know. Instead of sculpting glyphs inside of wood, you probably take a tree trunk, you know, chop down a tree and then sculpt a whole statue. So that's gonna be some next level stuff right there.
Yeah, he's gonna have to start with the scribe. You know, there's with the seated the signature seated position of the scribe. So it's gonna be working on a tree trunk. That's the first one.
Yeah,
There was definitely a progression there because when I first started, it wasn't so, it was looking so professional. But it's definitely a progression in everything I do.
yeah, that's good. That's excellent. Let me ask you this though, real quick, because I'm trying to stall. I'm looking at the chat, and I haven't seen anybody take a stab at this yet. So for those who are in the chat, I'm giving y'all, I'm stalling to give you some more time. But let me ask you though. There's two kinds of methods to carve. You have sunk relief, what they call sunk relief, and then base relief, which is raised relief. So which do you prefer when you carve into the wood?
It's easier to do the sunken relief, but I like how the raised relief looks. And I think you put more detail to it.
Okay.
So I like the raised better.
All right, I can imagine that's hard though, because you have to basically shave everything away from the glyphs as opposed to just smooth your piece and then put the glyphs inside. So yeah, I can imagine
It takes a little longer, but I
Yeah.
like how it looks better, and I
Yeah.
just like it just looks more artistic to me.
Well, as you can see on this piece, they blended the two. So if you look at the lady standing, the woman standing, it's the edges are sunk, which gives the appearance of a raised relief within it. You know, so I think that's real interesting.
That's a whole nother level.
Yeah, that's real interesting right there.
Hey,
So I
when
guess
can,
this would.
when can we expect the sesh pieces?
Very soon, bro. Very soon.
All right.
I was definitely thinking of doing some sesh pieces, most definitely.
All right, just real quick, want to give a shout out to Mac Tip, Sejmu Patah Amun, Lisa, and I'm calling you out. I'm calling you all's name, and Sarah Jahuti, who's in the chat. You know, hope John buy some time to chime in. All right, so let's just get to it. All right, so row number one. I already gave away the first phrase, Hotep Di Nasu. And what can we say about that? Now, just a quick reminder about the offering formula, because obviously this is an offering formula. You see, the Hotep Di Nasu is the opening phrase for the offering formula. All of the offering formulas will be different in its details of its content, but the structure is the same for all of the formulas. And we went over this before. So based on, what we've been over a few times in previous Hangouts, we can kind of get a gist of what's going on with this very quickly. So when we say Hotep Di Nasu, usually what follows that is something, but I'll let someone else, basically finish out line number one. Anybody on the panel?
All right. Well, for the first time, we see bread. I mean, what's that? The reed leaf. Gardner code on that is M17. Next, we have the water ripple, and then below that we have the stool. I'm thinking that's Impu. Hotep Di Nasu Impu.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next, after that, we have this description is the enclosure. But for the whole phrase, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Those that quadrant of 4 signs is Peret. What's that? Peret Karu.
Yep.
Okay. And then well, the ones on the bottom are kind of hard to make out, but usually we see a bread and beer.
Yes.
Tea and Henniket. Okay. Right. And then the second to the last sign, as Ned said, that might be the bread. Another not the raised bread loaf, but it's it's more of a flat bread.
It's cake, bread cake.
Okay, the cake. And then under that we have the water ripple once again. I think it says Hotep Dinasut Enpu Pret Karu T Henniket. I'm not sure if that cake is the determinative or if it would be Jafau.
Tiu. Yep.
And then the last sign, the water ripple would just be, I think, N for
okay.
a.
All right, good. So that's it. Hotep Dinasu input, Peret Keru Jafau in, and then move over to the second line. So somebody can pick up on the second line. Now this has a couple of places, as Emiket said, is damaged, but you know, doing this enough, you can kind of pick up on the signs that are damaged and figure things out. Like especially with the Hotep Dinasu formulas, because they have the same structure, but the details may be different. But you can kind of figure it out based on knowledge of the structure. So we see some damage here on the second row, but it shouldn't stop us from making everything out. So
yeah, I could give it a try. I'm not sure what we have down here on this section, but as you see, we have Nishut on this end, and then we have Wati with the T feminine ending on this one. So I know that from what we're looking at, we should be coming up with a title of some sort. So with what I have, what I'm looking at, minus the damage, I'm assuming that it is a title and it has something to do with either a companion or something of the king, a royal companion. Using by looking at the two words that I can identify within the suit and the wati, which is somebody who's unique or so somebody unique to the king. That's as far as I can tell, and should be a title at this point.
Okay. All right. Excellent. And that brings us to line number 3, third line. And I'll well, how many have we? Have 5 lines? Okay, and it is okay. So anybody else want to tackle third line?
Okay, I could give it a try as well. Looking at the third line, I can see we have hoot, and then we have hair, and then we have hem nature nebet. Might be hemet nature on this section since we're dealing with feminine. See a lot of feminine endings, so I will go with hoot nature, hoot hair, and then hem naturette nebet.
All right. Okay, so we have Hut, Heret, Hemet, Necher, Nebet. And so I'll do the 4th line. And so the 4th line would be, because I already gave the word, that first word there is Yunut. And then we have Imaku. And we have to have a T at the end, so Imakut. And what that means, because remember we're doing step 4, so I don't know if we've been saying what these words mean. So we have to kind of back up, to go back to line 3. What did you say that meant?
So I think this would be might be het heru,
Mm-hmm.
and this would be the servant, and then this would be nabet, which would be lady or mistress.
Okay. All right. So we have the priestess, Hemet Necher, the high priestess of Het Heru, mistress of, and then it goes into the line 4, which was what I'm doing, mistress of this location, which is Unut. And then we have Imakut, which is a word, Imaku. You hear us say Imaku when we open up. Usually when we open up our Hangouts, we will recite an offering formula, but we kind of skip that because our piece tonight is an offering formula. But when we do it, you'll hear us say Inkani Imaku Aku Makeru. And that word Imak or Imaku it means worthy one or venerated one. And so Imakud is the feminine, so a worthy person. And so that will be line 4. And it brings us to line 5, last line. So anybody else want to do that one?
Yeah, I'll take this easy one. I got Kerr, Nefer Netcher, Neb, Pet. I gotta click the screens. I'm not on my computer. Pet, Hotep, C.
Okay. Okay. Just one glyph. If you back up one glyph, you may want to relook at that. The 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth glyph.
Ah.
That's Netcher I. All right.
2. Yep. All right. Excellent. So, so what does that mean?
I would say, in the presence of the great Netcher, sky, of the Lord of the sky, offerings to him.
Okay. Yeah, good. Close. Just the very end.
Yeah, I know.
The very end. Because remember the structure. So usually it'll end with
offering.
No, usually end with a person's name.
Okay.
So you said it correctly, Hotep or Hotep C. And so this go ahead.
Oh no, I was saying that in my head too. I was like, is that Hotep C?
Do I?
Yep, Hotep C. So this particular figure here must be the name of that individual. All right, so easy enough. So hopefully everyone can follow along. So let's kind of read it, all the lines together. I'll read it all together. We have Hotep Dinasu Enpu Peret Keru Tihenket Jafau in, and then we have a question mark on this particular glyph here. Is a lot of damage there. We can speculate, but for now, we just know it's a royal something. And so it'll be something Nisut. And then we have Watit, which means unique. So we can, kind of, what do you call it? Investigate that and figure out because titles, we can pretty much scan the different titles. Usually it's a unique companion of the king, royal unique companion, things like that, as Emiket said. And then the next line we have Het Heru, Hemet Necher, Nebet, Unut, Imakut, Ker Necher A, Nebet Pet or Nebpet, and then Hotepsi or Hetepsi. And that's it. All right, so that was pretty easy enough. And I see Lisa has a question. A question, please. What does it mean when a Netcher teat has a curved line at the side of the bottom pole? Okay, and for those, I know, in the archive, the chat won't be there. So The question is Necher teat, which means the image. Teat. Each individual glyph is called a teat. All right. So for those who didn't know, now you know. So the Necher teat. So the Necher glyph. So the question is, what does it mean when the Necher teat has a curved line on the side of the bottom of the pole? I don't know. Anybody on the panel know what she's referring to? Because I don't know what she's referring to.
Is there a netroglyph? Well, what she thinks is a netroglyph, a flag, or maybe an axe with a different pole. But I know I've seen something in the glyphs where it was shaped a little different at the bottom. I think that's a whole different glyph.
Yeah, the only thing I can think without seeing it, then I'll be totally guessing what she's talking about. But what comes to mind though is the Necher teat or the Necher glyph that's also with the word for khur, which means necropolis. It's the divine cemetery. So, and it has the Necher standard that's sticking in it, but it's not necessarily a curved line. So that kind of is throwing me off. But I would have to see that to see what's being talked about. So, but what comes to mind is the word khur Necher, which will be the divine underplace, which is what it means, but it's speaking about the necropolis, the cemetery, the grave. Okay, all right, so that's pretty much it. So hopefully everybody followed along with that, and now we can move on to another discussion, and I'll click off sharing that screen. And so okay, so that's good, and hopefully everybody gets it. And we've been kind of redundant, going over offering formulas and using them as Freestyle Fridays. Hopefully we drive it in people's minds. One of the reasons why we do this on Freestyle Fridays, or one of the benefits, is to show the people that it can indeed be done. We've had rumors that the hieroglyphic writing system has not been deciphered. So hopefully we've put those to bed. We put those rumors to bed, because that's really a silly claim at this point, and we really shouldn't entertain it anymore, because it just hinders progress, and it's very detrimental when influential people will make that claim without being able to back it up. And when they attempt to back it up, they're using illogical reasoning and the whole nine. All right, so we wrote a book to rebuttal it, to put it to bed, and I would encourage everyone to get the book. It's called Has the Egyptian Hieroglyphic Writing System Been Deciphered? A Rebuttal to Professor Walter Williams. And it was written by us collectively as a group, the Seshu Ma'ani Meta Necher. That's available on Amazon. All you have to do is search our name, Seshu Ma'ani Meta Necher, and it'll pull right up. And I encourage everyone to get it, because within the book, we just rebuttal the claims of it not being deciphered and the reasons given. And we go step by step, point by point, rebuttaling the claims. And it's written in two parts. The first part, though, we give people necessary information, some prerequisite information that you need to know in order to understand how and why it has been deciphered, and how Professor Walter Williams is completely incorrect in making such claims. All right, so we wrote that book, and so hopefully we'll be able to put that to bed, because not only has it been deciphered, but we can read it. We have been reading it. That's what our Freestyle Friday has been showing you, because we've been doing it without books. Freestyle Friday is straight from memory, straight from what we say, straight from the dome, straight from the head. All right, and so don't let us pull out the books. You can give us any text, and we'll go through it if we're gonna do it with the books. But we do small, simple inscriptions for Freestyle Friday, so we don't take up a lot of time, and we just do it straight from memory, straight from the head. And so not only are we able to do that, but we're able to read it, we're able to understand it, and we're able to even write it, which maybe Imikep can speak on a little bit later. And now, so that brings us to our another topic. So, once we actually learn the basics, learn the structure of the language, how it works, how the hieroglyphs work, and everything like that, which is basically a beginner's level. Once you become proficient at that, the question is, where do we go from here? So, as you can see, Sun Jehuti Ma'at has gone through the beginner's level course and have become proficient in a beginner's level. And now he's applying it to his actual craft, his actual business and craft. So now not only is he able to supply service or goods to other people in exchange for money and things like that to help support him, but he's doing something that he likes doing. And not only that, it's not arbitrary. So what he's carving, what he's doing, what he's providing with people are things that are accurate. It could still be novelty, like novelty items, but at least it has some accuracy to it. So that's a big plus, a big benefit.
I just want to correct you real quick, Saber.
What's
I
that?
love doing it. I love doing it.
Okay, well, yeah, there you go. So yeah, so it puts, it puts them, it keeps them out of the pseudo quarantine. Keeps them out of the what do you call it, the escape hatch, when you gotta quarantine people. Keeps them out of the pseudo domain. All right, so but that's good. But also, but where do we go from here? So I just want to kind of open it up for that discussion. So maybe anybody on the panel, let me actually share my screen. And because what we've done now, we've had a hangout to explain this, but I want to put a little bit more context into this chart that I'm now sharing. So hopefully you all can see that, and hopefully people watching us can see it as well. But let me explain it, and then we could just discuss it a little bit. So what you're looking at is our curriculum, basically a structure of learning procedure, pedagogy, for lack of a better way of describing it. But it's in a pyramid form. And so what you're looking at is 3 levels. On the right-hand side, you see levels, level 1, level 2, level 3. On the left, you see the pyramid, and it's divided into 3 levels. The first level, it corresponds to first, let me say, in Kemet, there were 3 seasons to the year, 3 seasons. And so the pyramid is divided into 3 levels, and it corresponds to the 3 seasons. So at the very bottom, you have the season of Aket, which is the season of inundation, which is the flooding of the Nile. The flooding of the Nile, we understand that it provided the environment, the fertile land, the fertile ground, for the seeds to be planted, grown, and the foods and everything to be harvested. So that's basic start. You have to have the flood. So you have to have the fertile soil first before you can grow anything. And so this represents a nice way of level 1. You have to create a fertile ground within your mind and your skills in order to move forward. All right. So level 1 corresponds to the first season. And so within level 1, we have 3 stages: stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. So stage 1 is a foundation in Rani Kemet, which is the spoken language, and then Seshmetu Netre, which is the written language. So we have, or the writing system. So stage 1 is the beginner's level. Stage 1 of level 1 is beginners. All right. Stage 2 would be Rani Kemet grammar and penmanship. So you will move from the beginner's level, which is where we are now. So the question of tonight is, where do we go from here? You're looking at it. So once you've become proficient at a beginner's level, you will be ready to go to stage 2 within level 1, which is to learn the grammar. And that's very important. You really don't know a language until you learn its grammar. Because one thing to learn the writing system and how the spoken language is encoded visually, which is what a writing system is. But now you have to, in order to really wrap your mind around the language and say, and be able to confidently say that you know the language, you have to learn the grammar. All right. And grammar is inclusive of morphology and syntax. So, but we just simply call it grammar. So you have to learn that. That's stage 2. So that would be the next step for anybody out there who's already learned at beginner's level. Your next step will be to learn the grammar. All right. And you learn a little bit of grammar at a beginner's level. It's very, very basic grammar. But stage 2 goes into the grammar full stop. All right. It's an intense way of learning. All right. Now, step 3 or stage 3 within level 1 is a beginner's level of historical comparative linguistics, which is a scientific discipline. And in that stage, you'll learn the methods and tools of comparative linguistics. And that's necessary. So that these are necessary things that will set the stage for level 2. All right. And then the 3 stages within level 2. And so once you accomplished all of level 1 and became proficient at all those stages, then you can go to level 2. Level 2, stage 1 is the recovery of the historical pronunciations. Now you can see why in level 1, stage 3, why stage 3 is so important, learning that the historical comparative linguistic methods, those methods and tools, because in stage 1 of level 2, that's where you're going to need it. Because in order to start to even try to attempt to recover historical pronunciations, you have to have, the skills in order to do so. All right. So that's stage 1. And stage 1 provides you the means and skills to do stage 2 of level 2, which is the development of speech communities. All right. So now we can start speaking the language to one another, friends and family or whatever, and then create communities. And then it brings us to stage 3. Stage 3 is utilization of everything below that. I'm speaking about stage 3, level 2. All of the stages below that will be utilized for stage 3. Stage 3 is more so, it's more so fit for an initiatory environment, because stage 3 involves the recovering of the realities behind the figurative expressions that Africans were so good at doing. And still to this day, we all do it. We use figurative expressions, figurative language. When we say metaphors, allegory. Matter of fact, in rap songs, hip hop lyrics, rap lyrics are full of metaphors and allegories, analogies, and other types of figurative expressions. So we still do it to this day. But in historical or ancient times, that was the way to go. All right. And it developed out of a reason, out of a necessity to pass information on from generation to generation, because you have to remember, back in ancient times, there were no USB jump drives. There were no hard drives, no computers and things like that. So people had to memorize information. So, we know that because when we say a wisdom keeper, when a wisdom keeper passes away and transitions and dies, we always say that a library dies with them, So, so one of the techniques that was used was figurative speech or figurative language. So stage 3 is more so fit for initiatory. Now, the reason why I say initiatory is because when dealing with realities behind symbolisms, allegories, metaphors, you have to be in a very controlled environment, and you have to be very disciplined to endure that kind of recovery and things like that. All right. So that's really built for initiatory environment. So level 2 is when you start getting into you have to be in initiatory environment. And then that brings us to level 3. Level 3 is basically the level of living it, practicing it, applying it, utilizing it, executing it. So every stage in level 3 is dealing with those things. All right. So by the time you get to level 3, I should be able to see something in your behavior, your lifestyle, your views and everything that reflects everything below level 3. All right. So that's the idea of behind this pyramid curriculum. So that's to answer the question, where do we go from here? The immediate answer is get into the grammar. All right, get into the grammar. And right now I'm currently still working on a grammar textbook that's going to be used for a grammar course. So we will have grammar course in the near future once the book is finished and published, because we need the book as a textbook to complement the actual grammar course. So that will be forthcoming, and the penmanship course that will be we'll be offering that as well, which will be spearheaded by Sonet Emiket. So you learn to write the language or the various different scripts. We have Sesh Medu Necher. We have simplified Sesh Medu Necher that they call hieratic, and I think that's the two that we'll be dealing with. But Emiket, I don't know if you wanted to kind of speak on that.
Yeah. Regarding the penmanship, but before that, I just wanted to kind of like just give a quick summary of what you were talking about, because as most, I think most people know by now, the phrase that you use a lot, especially in the beginner's book about language, is the DNA of a culture. And obviously, in order to know the worldview and pretty much the psychology of that particular culture, you have to go through the language. And I know that we've had instances where people tell us that, or some people actually they raise their concerns about us learning the language, and what about the realities behind all this, the words that we're using and all of that do we know that? And what we wanted to emphasize was the fact that in order to get to that stage, you have to go through the language first. There are levels to that. And I wanted also just to add that obviously when you're learning a language, when you're trying to acquire a new language, there's always like languages can be divided into what can be termed as 4 different modalities, and that will be listening skills and reading skills and writing skills and obviously speaking skills. And when you look at the pyramid that we have, all of that, by the time you get to the second stage, you have pretty much acquired all those four different modalities that you need. Obviously, first, when you're dealing with the listening and the reading, you want to be able to prove that you can actually understand the language, and you do that through the reading, like what we were going through today on our freestyle. And obviously, also listening, you can be able to listen to words. Obviously, what the pronunciations that we are using now are tentative, but by the time we have recovered the historical pronunciations, we will be able to apply our listening skills to this to the language. And then through those 4 modalities, you want to be able to prove that you can understand the language, and then you can also produce the language. And by producing the language, you should be able to speak the language, and you should be able to be either speak it or write it. And writing is where the penmanship comes in, because you don't just want to be able to, you kind of reading it, but you don't know how to utilize it on your own. So the penmanship course is actually put together so that we, obviously we are scribes, so we should be able to scribe, but also it gives us that independence to be able to produce the language, to actually say that we've learned this and this is what we can use it for. Can you produce the language that you have learned? Can you write it? And this is what the penmanship course will be for. And obviously that also will come in different stages, because we're not just it has to be carefully planned in a way that by the time we're finished, we have to be to be able to write it, just as any other culture uses their own script to write what it is that they need to the information that they need to store. That's the kind of independence that we need to have as well with the language. And it's not just writing for the sake of going through the classes, but to be able to utilize it when it comes to the later stages that you see on the parent level. So just wanted to add that real quick. And then obviously the penmanship course is upcoming, and when that time comes, then I can go more into the details of what it entails. But yeah, don't want to turn into empty islands.
All right. Okay, excellent. That's good. That's really good. So let me put it back on my screen so people can see the pyramid again. So all right. It's a good way of explaining the four modalities of what we have to learn and everything. So that's excellent. And so this is what's coming up. So for those people who want to know where do we go from here and things like that, but I don't think we kind of touched on the benefit. You kind of actually opened it up a little bit. The benefit of learning the language, from the start, like what is the benefit of learning the language? And as you said, as we always say, that language is the DNA of culture. And so one purpose of learning any language that's very obvious is to communicate in that language, whether the communication is one way, two ways, or being on the receiving end. And so for our situation with Ronnie Kemet, we're on the receiving end because we can't time travel and talk to the ancient Egyptians or the Remech. We can't do that. So we're on the receiving end. So this is why we say, let the ancestors speak. And our job is to listen. And that's not literally because we're not hearing what they're saying, but we're reading it. And in order to read it, we're figuratively listening to them. And in order to do that, we have to learn their language. Otherwise, it'll sound like a bunch of noise to us. So we have to learn the language in order to listen to the ancestors. So when we say, let the ancestors speak, we have to say, it's our job to listen. And because language is the DNA of culture, the only way we're going to even know about the culture is through the language. All right. That's the only way. So, which raises a question about that decipherment claim. People who feel that the writing system has not been deciphered, the implication of that is that we know the ancient Egyptians themselves are not alive to speak to us, but we have records in writing visually of their state of mind, their worldview, and everything, because language is the DNA of culture. And so whenever someone says that the writing system has not been deciphered, what they're doing is they're cutting the umbilical cord. They're cutting it. They're severing our connection to that culture. That's the only way that we'll be able to learn about a culture. Now, you do have material culture. So you have archaeology that deals with the material culture, such as the pottery that's found, such as the hard, tangible items that they dig. You have these archaeological digs and things like that. But that's very, very limited. That's very, very handicapped when it comes to understanding the people of the culture. They work hand in hand. The archaeology, which is the material culture, and then the literate. When we speak about literate cultures, you also use the literature of that culture. And those two things combined gives us a much, much clearer picture of the culture itself. And so by saying that the writing system has not been deciphered, with a culture that was prolific in its writing at that, it's not just scant writings here and there, but there's writings everywhere in ancient Egypt. They've dug up so much papyri, and you have the tombs, the coffins, the temples, everything. Writing is everywhere. So to say that writing system hasn't been deciphered and never will be deciphered is to cut us off from that. And we went over this before in the previous hangout, so I don't want to beat a dead horse with that. But that's very, very important for us to learn the language. So the advantage of that is that by learning the language, there's no direct quick microwave benefit of learning the language in the way that people tend to ask the question. People will ask the question of, well, how is learning the Medu Neter, Ses Medu Neter, going to put food on my table? How is it going to put money in my pocket and things like that? That's a very shallow way of looking at it and formulating that question, because the advantage of learning the language is to open the way to allow the ancestor to speak directly to us by way of the literature, and for us to use them and their brilliance and their genius and allow it to be a resource to us to figure out our problems today. So it's not something that you're going to microwave. This is something that is a process. So we commune with the ancestors this way. We commune with the people of the Nile Valley by way of what they left behind. And so us understanding the language, we can tap into the mind of those people. And because we all bear witness to the genius of ancient Kemet, whether people just talk about the pyramids, the Sphinx, the temples, or whatever the case is, all the contributions that Egypt has given to the world, to the entire planet, we can tap into that. So the benefit is great. It's just not a quick benefit. And that's what a lot of people are looking for. So I hear the question a lot, and I just want to kind of touch on that the benefits are not this microwavable thing where you're going to go to sleep, wake up the next day, and then food is going to be in your refrigerator, money's going to be in your pocket. You're going to go in your coat pocket and find, $1 million in your pocket and anything like that. It's not made for that. It's made for exactly what I said. And it's a gold mine, diamond mine, platinum mine of a wealth of resources, information, wisdom that's in Kemet. And everybody on the planet taps into Egypt in some form of fashion. And that goes back to the race to decipher the writing system. When, there was a race, there was like competition going on. That's why there was end up being a beef between Champollion and Thomas Young. So because you have the British side versus the French, and so the Britain and the French, and you had the war, and then they won the war, and the whole Rosetta Stone, it was found by the French, but then it ended up being taken by the or commandeered by the British. So it was a back and forth war. And it's similar to today. I mean, not today, but in recent times in more recent history with United States and Russia racing to get to the moon. It was all about who was going to get to the moon first. The United States end up getting there first. And, as a side note, you got some people out there who think that nobody's ever been to the moon. But the point is that there was a race to see who was going to get to the moon first, between two nations, two countries, and things like that. So back then it was a battle. It was a battle between the United Kingdom and France, trying to decipher. Now, it was important to them because what happened was during the Renaissance era, when they were coming into enlightenment and the Renaissance of the whole, of the European nations, they took time out to comb through their what do you call it? Their I guess ancient civilization that they looked up to, which would be Greece. So going through the records, the old Greek records, they found a lot of Greek people speaking about Egypt, their trips to Egypt. And this is where you get the Greek philosophers, and they started to look through all of those different books and things like that. And they are wondering what secrets are contained in Egypt, and can they be found, and can we get them and utilize them? So that's what began this race to decipher the writing system, to find out what it is about this mystery system. That's where you get this whole idea about the Egyptian mystery system, So I say that to say everybody tapped into Egypt in some form of fashion. And then, but when it comes to us, we tend to take it for granted and ignore it, and we have to stop doing that. So this is the way to stop doing that, is to learn the language and it will cut down on a lot of speculation and a lot of misinformation that's out there. A lot of people who speak about Egypt, if they don't know the language, then they're open. I'm not saying that they do this. I'm just speaking in general, that what happens is you're open for error and mistake more so than a person who knows the language and can read the inscriptions and the primary documentation for themselves. And not to say that we won't make mistakes, but we can reduce the chances or the potential to make mistakes by knowing the language. It's just that simple. Like I've spoke English all my life, and I can still make mistakes with something written in English, but I will make far, far, far less mistakes than somebody who doesn't even know English. So that's the idea. All right. And so, and like I said, I don't want to be, like Emike said, I want MC Iron Lung for tonight. So,
I was actually going to compare it to apart from the moon, which is a good analogy. What I would say was like, it reminds me of when you're talking about the race to decipher the hieroglyphs, is reminds me of the scramble for Africa, in a way, because we're discussing a culture script, that was based and is in Africa itself, and then you have all these foreign groups racing to get a piece of that. And that reminded me of the scramble for Africa, and also with what we see right now, especially with the new article that came about about who the ancient Egyptians are or were. And and when you read things like that, then you actually understand that why there is an urgency for us to learn the language. So when people talk about or ask so how is learning the language, how is it going to help me, how is it going to put food on my table, at the end of the day, we have to look at a bigger picture. There's a lot going on, and we need, apart from thinking about the food, because there's different ways we can put food on our table, but we also have other issues apart from what to eat and all of that. And especially when we see with things like this, we need more people to step in and learn the language, so that we can actually be the voices that speak about Africa, and the culture, and not have other people tell the stories of Africa or dictate to us what Africa was or is and all of that. So I just wanted to put that in there.
Okay, yes, definitely. And that's so true. I want to quickly, let me see if I can share this on my screen. But yeah, anybody else has something to add to what we've been saying? I do want to share something. I'm gonna get it on my screen real quick.
Just want to say she made some excellent points. Very good points.
Yeah, and I don't want to alienate the people in the chat. So I know a couple of people have been typing. I'm going to take a peep at that real quick. But I want to share this. And then if I can find what I'm looking for. All right. Okay, yeah, I want to get this up. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see my screen. Okay, so this is what I was speaking about a little earlier, is that this is the book that we wrote as a group addressing the decipherment issue. And the book is entitled, Has the Egyptian Hieroglyphic Writing System Been Deciphered? A Rebuttal to Walter Williams. Now, we published this book in December before an event that was planned. It was supposed to have been a debate on that very question. And we published this early December. I believe it was December 14th, which was prior to the event. And in this book, and the reason why I want to emphasize this, and I want you all who are watching, who've been watching the archive, share this archive, and appreciate it, subscribe and everything, but also share the book, the link to the book. The link is actually inside the description of this particular hangout, but share the link because the issue comes up every now and then. And what I'm finding is that a lot of people who may not have known about the book, or, about the book period, or they don't know, what the content of the book is discussing outside of the title. The title is saying it's a rebuttal to Walter Williams, but the book covers all of these issues that are still even coming up, with that. Like, for example, people are still doing, because the issue is still coming up, people are doing presentations and stuff, and it's ongoing. So there's like a sense of, this book doesn't even exist. And we're like, hello, this book exists. This book is real. We wrote the book. It's out there. Get the book. And, let's put this idea that the writing system has not been deciphered. Let's put it to bed. Let's bury it and put the dirt back on it. Seal the coffin. Let's seal the tomb of that. Let's write a Peret Imheru for this issue and seal it up, and protect it from the grave robber, so it won't creep back up and be a zombie and walking around here talking about, people walking around talking about the writing system and not been deciphered. Let's put that to bed, because we have greater things to do. We have to learn the grammar. We have to master and be proficient and be competent in the grammar. And then from there, we have to recover the realities behind the figurative language, because it's one thing to read a text, but that there are multiple layers to, the way that Africans put together information, where there's literal there, and then there's layers of understanding, and that's coded and done by way of figurative expressions. And so we have to get under our belt the mastery of the writing system, how it's been encoded, and the grammar to understand what we're reading, but then to go behind that, go beyond that, and to recover the realities, to figure out what is really being said, what's really going on. And I just give you an example. If I say I have butterflies in my stomach, and I write that on a piece of paper, you can read that, Wujao had butterflies in his stomach. And you can read that, you can understand the grammar. Wujao will be the subject, had butterflies in his stomach would be the predicate, had would be the verb, in his stomach would be the prepositional phrase. We could break that down and understand it, and that's great. We need that. But then what do I really mean by that, though? And see, so this is where the culture becomes the backbone, and you have to tap into all of the above in order to really recover what is really meant by that. And what I really mean, if I say that, is that I'm nervous. There's a metaphor for nervousness. If somebody say, oh man, I got butterflies in my stomach, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can do it. That means that I'm nervous. There's no butterflies in my stomach. But now if I read that later on, and I read it, I learn the language and I read it, and I'll read that, okay, Wujao said he has butterflies in his stomach. I'm like, oh, that's not possible. Man, are these people crazy? They actually thought butterflies can be in your stomach, that way. So there's a lot more work to be done. And so we can't play around with the decipherment issue, because what's going to happen is people are going to play around with that, and they're not going to move forward. They're not going to take the extra steps, plural, to learn the grammar and everything like that. They'll spend the next 10 years arguing with people about the decipherment, and they themselves have not moved forward, So we don't want to get caught up into that. And now I want to stress that. So anyway, the link for this particular book is in the description of the Hangout. I encourage everyone to get it, share it. Anyone you think who may be interested in this topic, share the link with them. All right. Also, we have the beginner's book. And that I'm actually going to start a new class group for beginner's level of study, which is a 12-week course. You can go to the website. The website for the course is also in the description. All right. So make sure you look in the description. I believe the link is there where you could just click on it. So it's real convenient. All right. So I just want to put that out there, but I do see some questions in the chat. But before we go to questions, anybody have any comments on the panel? Oh, all right. So we're just going to keep it moving. And so let's just see what is going on in the chat. All right. So back up a little bit. So ETM Hotep for those who are tuned in now, you know, joining us now. And let's see. Let's see. Just trying to scroll up a little bit. All right. Strife 777. Mystery systems came from Madame Blavatsky's school. No. Yeah, the idea behind a mystery system and things that is heavily you know, discussed among the occult, the Theosophical Society, you know. And just so people will know, is that during those times in Europe, and European influenced academia, I should say, back then, there were two roads that were paved, and one was a scientific way and the other one was a pseudo-scientific way. And at the other end of those paths came out of those two different roads. On one side you have Egyptology, which is the scientific discipline of the study of Egypt. And on the other road, you have Theosophy and all of the occult groups that came out of that vein or that road, where people talk about the mystery system and they talk about it's like a hodgepodge of different ideas that's put together. You have the chakras, you have the Akasha records, you have the etheric bodies, and the people being what do they call them, vessels, or what do they call them when they claim that entities speak through them and bring knowledge to the earthlings or to a group of people and things like that. That's the vein that produced that. And on that vein, you have groups such as the Theosophical Society, the Golden Dawn, and all of the above. That's similar to that. But on the scientific side, you have Egyptology, and then you have all of the different other sciences that actually study the culture itself. All right. And it's not to say that Egyptology doesn't have its fair share of errors and mistakes. But what I'm saying is that Egyptology was the more scientific approach to things, whereas on the other side, they had a pseudo-scientific approach to things. And so our people today are influenced by both sides, and people can't tell one from the other. So you have people who are parroting ideas that come out of the Theosophy, such as the ancient Egyptian writing system is a secret language called Sinzar, and you know, the mystery system and how the glyphs themselves, they can't be read. They represent, you know, mysteries of the universe and things like that. And then you have on the other side Egyptology, where it's actually a systematic study of the culture, the language, and so on and so forth. And people can't tell one from the other. So we have to really do our best to cure that issue, cure that problem. So I know it's kind of long-winded, but hopefully that kind of answers the question. As far as the mystery system, it does come out of that. Because in order to say mystery system, see, when you say mystery system, people think of Egypt, you know, Egyptian mystery system. But every community in Africa, well, I don't want to be absolute like that. I don't want to say it absolute like that. But most communities in Africa have initiation houses or an initiation system. And another way of saying initiation system would be a mystery system. But it's only a mystery to those who are not initiated. It's a mystery to you. So when you join, then you'll learn. Because we can say school, our public school system is a mystery system to those who just don't go to school. Because you don't know what you're learning in those schools. So it becomes a mystery to you. So and I'm just saying, I'm trying to unspookify that it's an institution of learning. So we say mystery system is only a mystery to those who are not participants in it. All right. And what happens, like, let's take Freemasonry, for example. Freemasonry is a fraternal organization, but a lot of times you hear people will talk about Freemasonry, especially those who speak negatively about it, but they themselves have not participated in it. So it's a mystery to them. That's a mystery system. And they speak about it. But it's open. You could join. You could petition and join, you know, meet the requirements and you could join. You could find out, you know. So anyway, I'm just trying to go down the line. And you know, any of you all on the panel, I know I'm talking, but I'm just looking at the chat, and if you know anybody want to chime in, feel free to do so.
Tio Strife had a question up there asking if we plan to dialogue, or if we will dialogue with Professor Walter Williams.
Well, I would love to, after he writes an article, a paper, or you know, I wouldn't put it on him to write a whole book, but to put it in writing, addressing our book. I would think it would be premature to have a discussion prior to him doing that, because I've watched the interview that he was in, a 30 minute or so interview, and you know, it was just an interview. It wasn't addressing anything that we put in the book. You know, we took our time to respectfully address the issue, and so that's how you do it. So if you know, instead of dialoguing, it would be better if he put something in writing, and then we can look at it, then we could dialogue, because now I know what his position is in reference to our position. But as of right now, we won't know. We'll just be dialoguing. We'll be trying to figure it out while we're dialoguing, and that's to me, that's not an efficient way to handle that. So that would be my thing. But I would love to. That goes for anybody.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. That book is the people are ignoring that book. I mean, the community is staying away from that book. It's like the big elephant in the room. Nobody wants to deal with that book, man, for some reason.
Yeah.
Well, we know what the reason is, but nobody wants to deal with that book. They want to act like it don't exist. Nobody won't mention it, but Brother Ankh on the Amara Squad channel, but for everybody else, they don't want to mention it.
Right. I noticed that throughout the YouTube community, no one else is mentioning it, but I have seen Shaka Ahmos do a presentation, you know, a hindsight presentation on the issues that was raised by Sarah Sudanseti and Young Pharaoh, and everything. And a lot of things that he's saying is stuff that we've covered in the book, or even if it's not in the book, it, you know, things that was going to be discussed in relation to their claims at the event that never took place, and things like that. And see, the book is being, you know, people are acting like the book, it doesn't exist. And you're right, it's the elephant in the room. So that's why, you know, we need to push it, and hopefully people can share it and things like that. Get the book, because see, it's not about winning an argument or winning a debate. We're about teaching and edifying people. We want to expand knowledge. So we wrote the book in two parts. Part one is an educational piece. Part one, we're educating you. Part two, we're refuting Professor Walter Williams. We're rebuttaling his claims. That's how we laid the book out. All right. And part one, you will walk away from there understanding. Now it's not a exhaustive piece of work to you know, make someone an expert at anything, but part one is written in a way where you can walk away understanding what a writing system is and how the hieroglyphic writing system works, what it is, and immediately you will be able to refute some of the claims that are going around. You know, like, for example, I'll give a quick example. When people say that you can't put sound to a symbol, I mean, you don't even have to know anything from anything about the hieroglyphic writing system to kind of refute that, because we're speaking English. We can write English. We're putting sounds to symbols. When every time you put pen to paper and write an English sentence, you're putting a sound to a symbol. So it lets you know that the only way somebody can make that statement is if they have an incorrect idea about the symbols themselves. So just because the hieroglyphs themselves are images of real tangible things in our environment, like when you know, a hieroglyph of an elephant, a hieroglyph of a plant, a real plant, a hieroglyph of, you know, different animals, birds, and so on and so forth. These are objects that we can see, but because they're objects that we can see, for some reason, some people's minds are not able to click that you can assign a sound to that, because your mind is so bombarded with the image itself. So when it comes to English, which is really the Latin script, we use the Latin script to write English. These symbols, they don't resemble anything in our environment. So your mind is not clouded or bombarded with that kind of thought. So you can more easily accept the fact that a sound is assigned to this symbol. Like, let's take the letter B. The second symbol in the English alphabet is the letter B. The letter B, whether it's uppercase or lowercase, it doesn't resemble anything that we can readily identify in our environment. It just doesn't. So our mind is not clouded by that. So we just know that the sound, which is called a voiced bilabial plosive, that's what the sound is. That sound has been assigned to this symbol, which is a line and two humps, you know, going to the right for the capital B, and a line and one hump at the bottom for the lowercase b. So we know a voiced bilabial plosive, which is B, that sound was assigned to that symbol. And we can accept that. But the moment that I draw a leg and a foot, if I draw a leg and a foot and do the exact same thing, a voiced bilabial plosive, and assign B, that sound, to that symbol, all of a sudden people go crazy. No, you can't do that. Why not? You see, I don't even have to have knowledge of the writing system to understand that. That's common sense things right there. You know, so I say all that to say is that within the book, part 1, we go through that. We talk about that. What I just said is in the book, you know, where, you know, you can pretty much understand all of that stuff. So anyway, but yeah, people are acting like it doesn't exist. And, you know, so like you said, we understand why, because it kind of, it puts it to bed, you know, puts it to bed. And sometimes, you know, it's not in the best interest of people to put things to bed, because there's a recurring thing that has to happen in order for people to stay relevant, you know, and things like that. So, but they do so at the expense of our progress as a people in general, you know. And I'm just speaking in general. I'm not speaking about any individuals in particular, because if I were, I would just say their names. I have absolutely no problem doing that. And I don't even like it when other people will imply and have innuendos and things like that. So I'm just speaking in general for anyone who is of the same mindset that the hieroglyphic writing system has not been deciphered. This goes for anybody out there. And it's not too many people out there that actually believe that, you know. So anyway, but I'm still scrolling. So what else is going on in the chat? We need to learn as much of our culture history as possible. Go back to the African studies. Okay, yeah, Brother Strife, that's definitely true. I'm just trying to make sure I'm not missing any questions. He said, question, will you be oh, okay. That's what we already just discussed. Okay, Chris Woods, you said you had a question. I am looking for your question, and I don't see it. I don't see it. So yeah, if you have any questions, Bud John, yeah, Hotep. If
He had
that's
a
the
question
same,
about.
I'll say it again.
He had a question in reference to the Magi. I'm trying to find it for you.
Oh, okay, I see it. I see it up. All right. let me go to that before. Bud John, if this is the same Bud that I think that you are, I'm gonna say Hotep. I haven't seen interacted with you in a long while. We used to hang out in the hangouts a while back and everything. But okay, so let's go to the question. Chris Woods, is the term Magi or Magi legitimate? From what I read, it was only used during the New Kingdom, but it refers to a mercenary group in Nubia and later the Pharaoh's guard. Is the term itself legitimate? Yes, the term exists. Matter of fact, you can look in the autobiography of Winnie, or some people say Una, but look up the read in the autobiography of Winnie, and you'll see the word magi used within that autobiography, if I'm not mistaken, because I'm just telling you off the top of my head. But that's a autobiography to get for that term, as well as why we shouldn't use the word Nubia. Now I know you didn't have a question about that, but I'm gonna just mention it real quick. That the word like you asked if the word magi is legitimate, and the answer to that is yes. But you didn't ask if the word Nubia is legitimate, and the answer to that would be no. So Magi is legitimate, Nubia is not. You know, Nubia, the word Nubia, I'll tell you why. The word Nubia is simply a replacement word for the early Egyptological designation that early Egyptologists described anyone that was below Egypt, that was below the southern border of Egypt. But they didn't describe them as Nubia in these writings. They described them as Negroes, the blacks. And that was during a time in early Egyptology where they were still of the opinion that the Egyptian civilization was started by people other than Black Africans or Africans. And so they designated everybody below Egypt as Black or Negroes. And so because then that particular word Negro itself, in other words, they translated the word, the actual word in the inscriptions is Ta-Nehesi. They translated the word Ta-Nehesi, and all of the groups that lived in that geographical location, they called them Negroes. And then later it switched to Nubians. So Nubia, the word Nubia or Nubians is just a replacement term for the word Negro. And so is it legitimate? No, it's not. Because in actuality, the word Nubia is found in the Egyptian language, but it's for two major cities, two major geographical locations or cities. One you can look up is called Ombos. And the other one has a similar name. It's called Kom Ombo. And both of those locations were anciently known as Nubti or Nub. And it was simply a designation of the city of gold, where gold was found and gold was mined. Okay. And that's where they get it from. Now, mind you, these two cities are within Egypt, within Kemet. So using the word Nubia, you'll be all twisted up because you're really identifying two cities within Kemet, but you're trying to talk about people south of Kemet. You see how the trick is. So hopefully you follow along with what I'm saying. So the term Magi is definitely legitimate. But the term Nubia is not the way it's used. All right. So me, I don't use the word Nubia. And when other people use it, I understand what they mean. Nubia and Kush and all that. I understand. Kush is really Kosh and Nubia is really Ta-Nehisi. And there's several groups that we ignore that lived in the area of Ta-Nehisi. You have the Yam, you have the Iret people, you have all these different people that lived in Ta-Nehisi. But the way that we talk about it, we just call them all Nubians. And that's not fair to them, not fair to that and those ancestral people. And everybody's get it all twisted and confused because real Nubia is in Kemet. So if we want to play around with it, the Nubians are the Egyptians because the place that they named Nubia after are two cities within Egypt. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. So no, I went kind of a little long with it. And that's not even what you asked, but I have to touch on it though, a bit. All right, and yeah, if you want more information about it, because I'm trying to be brief now, but um, on Facebook we've had discussions about this. So if you join our Facebook group, uh, if you haven't, join it, and then I may be able to tag you inside of different topic posts where we just actually discussed it. I put up a map. I show where Com Ombo and Ombos are on the map, show their ancient name, and show how they're within the borders of Kemet today and in ancient times, and show how Nubia, what we're trying to designate as Nubia, is really Ta-Nehisi, and you have Ta-Seti, which is above that. All right, Ta-Seti usually the most southern nome of Kemet, and they kind of get that twisted up as well. Ta-Seti, you have Ta-Seti and Ta-Meri. Ta-Seti was land of the bow. Ta-Meri was land of the hoe. So you have the hoe and the bow. Those are two modes of the people's operations. The hoe, there's agricultural people. The bow, people who hunted. So you have people who were expert hunters. They were known as land of the bow. That's why they became out of that particular group of people. You had these people who were the mercenaries that you're speaking about. They were good at the bow because they come from an ancestral mode of living where they utilized the bow to hunt. So they became expert bows, passed down from father to son. You teach your son the trade that you are expert at. So a lot of people were very good at the bow and things like that, the bow and arrow, and so on and so forth. So out of that, you had good people who were good defenders, because obviously they had weapons. They were good at those weapons. Then you had the farmers, people who were grew up understanding agriculture and farming. So you have Ta-Meri, Ta-Seti. You have Kemet versus Deshret. So you have these dualities going on in the names. You have Ta-Mehu, you have Ta-Shemau, Ta-Meri, Ta-Seti, Kemet, Deshret. So I gave you two sets. I gave you three pairs of names. Ta-Shemau, which is upper Kemet, which is to the south, and then Ta-Mehu, which is lower Kemet, which is to the north. And that separated those two. Ta-Shemau is the land that's narrow. Ta-Mehu is the land that's drowned. The word Mehu means to be drowned, the bottom, the foot of something. So you have the drowned land, which is the delta, which is swampy, and then you have the narrow part of the kingdom, which is Ta-Shemau. All right, the hot, heat, narrow part. And then you have Kemet versus Deshret. Kemet is the fertile area, and Deshret will be the desert area, infertile area. So you have fertile versus infertile, drowned versus narrow. Then you have agriculture, farming versus hunting. So Ta-Meri, they say the beloved land, but Meri, the word mer is an actual word for the hoe that they use to actually do the farming. All right. So anyway, I know y'all didn't ask that, but so let me keep it going. See, MC Iron Lungs knocking at the door, boy. Let's see. Okay, now Hotep Bud, he said the whole world was perusing Egypt. Did the Chinese chase Egypt also? Okay, now I don't mean in ancient times when Egypt was thriving. I'm talking about today. I'm talking about the whole world benefits from the contributions that Egypt has made to the world. So I don't know if I was clear with that. So I'm going to assume that you understood that to be what I said, and then I'll answer your question. So does the Chinese benefit from the contributions of Egypt today? And yes, not so more indirect, where we can actually trace, like how we could trace Greeks. The Greeks come into ancient Egypt in ancient times, but I'm speaking about ancient times and today. Today, the world benefits from the contributions that Egypt has made. one particular that people should know right off the top of your head is paper, books. In order to have books around the world, you're benefiting from ancient Kemet, the papyrus, and I can go on and on and on, but I just to give a quick example of what I meant by that. All right. But now remember, Chinese, when you say Chinese, you're talking about a member of a nation called China. And China is a country today that didn't exist as China in ancient times. So what we would call the Asiatics, the continent of Asia, there were Asiatics that came into Kemet called the Amu. And those Amu definitely benefited from the knowledge and wisdom of Kemet. All right, in ancient times. Now, can I say those Amu are Chinese people and stuff like that? No, I wouldn't be able to go that far to say that, because these are modern designations of people and stuff. And then you get into ethnicity and race and stuff like that. And that's not an ancient, how we view ethnicity or race today is not the way that it was viewed in ancient times. All right, so just wanted to touch on that. So I don't know if I answered your question, but hopefully you can clarify. And so remember, any of y'all on the panel, you want to jump in, because y'all don't get me started. We've been on 2 hours, so I do want to kind of keep it brief, so I don't want to go too far more. So let's just go through these questions real quick. Strife says, can you wait a minute, if y'all will have the dialogue, I think it would be good to close the subject. Oh, okay. He's just basically saying we already addressed that. The dialogue with the elder. Did I miss any questions? Because man, scroll pretty fast. We have no standard in our community. We let anybody teach, right? Yeah. Just quick comment on that. We actually shouldn't allow just anybody to teach. That you should there should be a requirement that's met, criteria that's set for, but because of YouTube, because of social media, anybody can be a YouTube teacher. Anybody can set up a YouTube channel and teach. And then if you a good teacher, you have charisma and swag and whatever and all that, then you become attractive to people. People are attracted to what you're doing, and then you become influential, and then it goes from there. But it doesn't speak to the accuracy or the quality of your information. So we have to be careful with that. What about all this recent ancient Egyptians were Caucasian study blogs? Why do you think they are becoming so frequent? Yeah, we addressed that. That's an article that came out about a month ago, and we addressed it early. We addressed it as soon as it came out, because we knew that it was going to grow legs. But it's just a misrepresentation of the data. And it's typical. Like we shouldn't be surprised at it, and it's just something typically done. Because now we should learn from that, though. See, what we should take from that is that there are a sector of people that's out and about, whether it's on social media or whatever, that they really, really are salty about ancient Egypt being an African creation. And so, although they were silent all this time, they couldn't say anything. Now, when the study comes out, now they just jump on it, and what they really feel and think is coming out. But they're fooling themselves, because they're misrepresenting the information or the data in the study. Because even within the data, if you look at the journal, that's why it's always good to go to the actual study. Don't take blogs. Don't stop at blogs. Blogs are okay, but remember, blogs want readers, and they're going to title it, to attract readers, and they're going to fluff it up and put some sensationalism all in there and everything like that. So just be careful with blogs, but go straight to the journals or the actual report itself, and you'll read it where they explain what they did. You know, they say 150 mummies or whatever, but out of that, only 3 of them were usable, you know, to map out. And then out of that data, it was only in one location in Egypt that was known to have a occupation by foreigners, only from one particular time, which is the late period of Kemet. So now people want to take that DNA, that data, and say that Egypt was founded by Europeans. Even in the journal, they tell you that they cannot make that claim because they don't have nearly enough data or actual material, genetic material, to make that determination. They just got from one location and a small group of mummies, deceased people. You know, so anyway, we already covered that. Neheshu was used, correct? I think that's in reference to Nubia. It's Ta Nehesi. Okay. Strife says, I'm aware of the genophenotypes change over millennia, but do you think this is, or why do you think it's being pushed recently? Well, listen, you know, what we're going through right now, our generation, we are actually living in an environment that is comparable to the environment that Sheikh Anta Diop and Dr. Theophile Benga, the climate that they were dealing with, which is prior to 1997, the UNESCO Cairo Symposium. Okay, remember back then, it was brewing up that, you know, the blackness of Egypt was at question. The Africanness of Egypt was in question. And so Sheikh Anta Diop and Dr. Theophile Benga were basically the most prepared people at that symposium, and they presented their data, and it basically quelched all of those claims back then. And now from then until now, it's been a 30-year, 40-year, what was it, 1974, 2004 would be 30 years, 2014 would be 40 years. So we're about 40 plus years away from that. And now it's just recycling. But now with the advent of DNA, because remember back then they didn't have, the human genome wasn't mapped, and they didn't have the DNA like we do today. So now with the more latest technology, we're just going back into that. All right. So that's why we have to be prepared. And see, people want to be silly and talk about the language hasn't been deciphered, never will be deciphered. But yet we have people who are challenging and attacking some of the very essential core things about ancient Egypt, you know? So we don't have time to play those games. That's why I said, you know, we wrote the book to put it to bed. People want to act like the book don't exist. Then that's when we gonna open our mouths. And that's when, you know, I'm telling people that if anybody doubts if the language has not been deciphered or not, then, you know, bring it. Come with your reasoning, write something, and let's talk. Bring it, you know, and let us deal with it. Because we could walk from A through Z and prove that stuff real quick, just like what I just did about sounds to symbols. That's real quick. You know, it'd take me 5 minutes to just totally crush that claim. You know, we wrote the book as a teaching tool to edify people. But if somebody were to actually a dialogue with somebody, it just give me 5 minutes and it's done. 5 minutes is done. Buried, put it in a coffin, put the text around the coffin, bury it, seal it up, and let's move on. Period. That's it. You know, so we can't be playing these games. We're you know, these things. Africa is under attack. It's been under attack. Sona Emicat mentioned the scramble for Africa. We know about that. We know the Berlin Conference and how they divided Africa all up. You got countries in Africa who have just received their independence kind of recently, like, you know, within my lifetime. And it's kind of hard to kind of, you know, put that into context. These are people who just received their independence from colonialism and British rule and whatever other rule that was there, French rule. You got people who are still paying whatever they call it to these other countries, African countries who are paying other countries money still. So we don't have time to play these games. You know, we really don't. And we got to stop looking at Africa as a country. Africa is a continent with many countries, plural. You know, because I hear people, you know, we kind of like people will say China and then Africa. No, you don't do that. That's not a comparison. You know, China is a country. Asia is a continent. So if you want to say Africa, say Asia and Africa. Don't say China and Africa, Japan and Africa. No, say Japan and Kenya, or Japan and Sudan, China and Sudan. Don't say China and Africa. Don't use that way. Don't have that. We got to stop that. We got to stop that. Africa is the most diverse continent of people, languages, DNA, and everything on the planet, because it's the mother and fathers of everything, of everybody on the planet. All right, so we got to stop doing that with Africa. But all right, so I don't want to be too long. I'm trying to skip to anybody see any questions I missed. Okay, yeah, Chris, I see Chris Woods. I see you sent me a message. I'll address it when we're done. Oh, he said we need a Wajal Jabari dialogue. How does Kemet contribute to today? Yeah, the brother Jabari, I've seen a couple of his interviews and videos, and I've never met Jabari, but I would love to meet the brother and definitely have a good talk, because we, you know, basically on the same page with a lot of things. So yeah. And I know, you know, his focus is on Kemet. I know he has a degree. He has a degree in history. He's a historian, but you know, like he always says that Kemet is his focus. He deals with Kemet. He's a high priest within the Shrine of Ma'at. I believe that's what it's called. And he has, you know, a community of people. And so I applaud that. Definitely. But we have to get it together. We can't be doing this silly stuff. So check this out. This will be the last thing I say. I mean, anybody else got something or a question I be missing? But okay, let me just check. Look at what's going on. Look what goes on. We have a brother, our brother, Sarah Sudin Seti. He's been teaching about Kemet for I think, according to him, about 15 years. I get confused because he says 30 years for something and he says 15 for another. I believe it's 30 years he's been studying and 15 years he's been like teaching or lecturing and stuff like that. So if I'm wrong, forgive me. But my point is that the brother Sarasun said he has been teaching about Kemet for quite a long time. All right. And representing Kemet, you know, went to Kemet, study Dr. Ben, Ashra Kwesi, and the whole nine. Everybody, you know, said he's very popular and he does what he does. So he's been teaching about that. And now he's of the belief that the writing system has not been deciphered. So he shares the same belief that Professor Walter Williams does. So now the question becomes, as we said earlier, language is DNA of culture. All right. And we know that the ancient Egyptians are not alive today to talk to us directly or whatever the case is. So the question becomes, how can anyone teach about ancient Egypt, but yet at the same time believe the writing system has not been deciphered? Because at that moment, you have to ask yourself, what are you teaching then? And where did you get it from if it's not by way of the language? Because you're not looking at the material culture. You're not looking at a pot or, you know, or the material substance that people dig up in terms of talking about Egypt. You're talking about Egypt by way of its literature for 15 years, but yet at the same time saying that it's not been deciphered. So you can't have it both ways. So that creates a what do you call it? A paradox or whatever. It's a contradiction. You can't do that. But now the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you have Sarah Sunseti, who has also the title that he calls himself the general. A general is a person, you know, that's either an academic warrior or a warrior, you know, in the military, whatever the case is. So no matter what, he's in a position to defend, you know. Now my question is, how can a person like him, and I don't want to pick on him, but I'm using him, he's an example, but it's other people like him. But how can a person like him teach about Kemet for so long and champion Kemet for so long, say that the language has not been deciphered, and by doing all of that, Kemet is under attack by saying that, you know, Egypt was founded by Europeans and Caucasians and whatever the case is. You see, so my point is that while we get caught up in the silliness or improper research or just flat out pseudo scholarship, we are opening ourselves up to be vulnerable to attack. And that's what's happening. So I'm kind of elaborating on why now, because there's no consensus in the community about Kemet. And so a house divided is a house that's what is it saying? You know, a house divided is a house that can't stand. So we don't have this academic unity about Kemet. So we have people on the outside of that looking in and seeing the vulnerability, and it's under attack. It's just that simple. So you got blogs that will say, okay, Egypt was founded based on this DNA stuff. Egypt was founded by Europeans. Now we can't fire back because we don't have things locked and loaded. You know, you don't go to a gunfight or a war with an unloaded weapon so that when you get to the war, you got to pause and load your weapon. No, you have your stuff loaded, the safety off, drawn, finger on the trigger and everything. So when it goes down, you ready right then and there. You can respond, boom, counter punch, boom, counter this, counter that, or preventive, you know. So we got to think about that like academically. So are we ready? Do we have things loaded up in the chamber, ready to unload? No, we don't. Why? Because we're still messing with silly claims like the language hasn't been deciphered. Come on, who does that? So that's, you know, that's the issue I have with this whole thing, you know. So as the Seshumani Metanetra, you know, we are about teaching people the language. We're starting at a very basic level, beginner's level. We're giving you the foundation, solid foundation, like foundation so strong that you know, you can't go backwards. It's like me trying to tell somebody to forget your name. You can't forget your name, you know. You need to learn the foundation, that from that foundation you can build on it, and you'll be better equipped to defend and understand things, whether it's to defend or whether it's to apply in your own life to take the benefit or utilize the benefits of the genius of ancient Kemet, you know. He said, yeah, he said, I don't know about it. That's true. A house divided because there's duplexes. That's true. That's true. But I guarantee you, though, that duplex is owned by a single landlord, and that landlord come to get his rent. You know, but yeah. So I'm just saying, you know, we can't. We have to stop playing games. We have to stop playing games. We can't teach about Kemet. You can't say that.
It was a trailer park back then. They didn't take off.
Say it again.
They was on the move. I said they had treated more like a trailer park because they was on the move back when the whole thing came down.
Yeah. So that's crazy. We have to do better. We have to do better. So I mean, that's my issue with that. And you know, like I said, I don't want to pick on any one or two individuals, but like I said, I'll mention the name because I don't, you know, in this environment, this hostile debating environment, stuff like that, people create and exaggerate, you know, opposition and become adversaries unnecessarily. So I don't like the innuendos or whatever the case is. Everybody knows about Sarasun Seti and young Pharaoh and how they feel about the language. So that's not a secret. I'm using Sarasun Seti as an example because he claims to be a scholar and he's been teaching for 15 years. So the question that people should ask him and anybody like him that does what he does, how can you teach about a culture, but yet you cut everybody off from the culture by saying that the language has not been deciphered? That means that whatever the quality of your teaching must be very, very shallow, very, very shallow, because you can't talk about it. You know, how do you know Kanum is Kanum? You know, how do you know that Sarah is Sarah? How do you know that Seti is Seti? How do you know that Nisut, that you pronounce the Sutin? How do you know that that means king or whatever? How do you know these things? How do you know any of the deities' names? Matter of fact, hold on, let me tell you this, and this will be last thing. How do you know Medu Necher is even Medu Necher? Hold on, let me show y'all something. See, man, I think somebody's trying to purposely get me started. Okay, it probably take me too long to show that, so I'll just say it. The phrase Medu Necher. How do you? Oh, matter of fact, it's on the screen. Okay, just look at the at our logo right here. Seshu Mani Medu Necher. Look at the glyphs that's within the circle that you see on the screen. To the far right, you see the phrase Medu Necher. That phrase right there says what our name is. That phrase in the glyphs is Seshu Ma'a Ni Medu Necher. So you see it spelled out around the ring, around the circle, but then within the circle you see the glyphs that spell the exact same thing. So Medu Necher is the last two glyphs that you see there. But guess what? What you're looking at is what's called honorific transposition. So what you're looking at is actually Necher is first. So if you were to read it how you see it, it would be Necher Medu. So that's a double thing when people saying that the Medu Necher has not been deciphered. Like, how do you even know how to say Medu Necher the way Medu Necher instead of Necher Medu? You see what I'm saying? So they're actually utilizing principles of the language that we can only learn by if the language is deciphered to even say it's not deciphered. Do y'all see what I'm saying? So that's some backwards logic. That's some real backwards logic. And that's what I mean. That's what I said. If I was dialoguing with any people, it just take me 5 minutes to really deal with the logic of the claims. Like I don't even have to get into the details of everything. It's just the logic of the claims that'll just fall to the wayside. You cannot say Medu Necher hasn't been deciphered, because how would you know that it's called Medu Necher? And the fact that you know to say it properly as Medu Necher and not Necher Medu, that means that you understand the principle of honorific, what they call honorific transposition, where they give honor to the word for deity or king or a deity's name itself, which is what we see right here. Because if you read it literally, like the name King Tut, how do you know to say it that way when the word Amen is written first? How do you know to say Tut Ankh Amen when Amen is written first? Why don't you say Amen Tut Ankh? Because you are actually utilizing principles that are only learned by if the language has been deciphered. You're utilizing it and don't even know it. You see what I'm saying? So anyway, so on one hand, now check this out. On one hand, people say Sutin. And that same person that will say Sutin will say Medu Necher. Now I'm going to tell you why I'm bringing this up. I already explained Medu Necher. The word Necher is written first, but it's pronounced second. Why? Because you have a phenomenon called honorific transposition. So when a person says Medu Necher, they're utilizing honorific transposition. Now, when that same person who utilized honorific transposition to say Medu Necher, when it comes over here to this word, they say Sutin incorrectly. They totally ignore honorific transposition for that. But that's the exact same thing. It's really Nisut, but they say Sutin. You see what I'm saying? So it's confusion upon confusion. That's involved. And so you can see how easy the logic just falls to the wayside. Whenever you deal with somebody or people or who know how the language works and basically know what they're talking about. All right. So anyway, you know, I know I kind of went on. It's 11:39, so I'm trying to keep up with the comments. Anything am I missing? I'm hogging the mic. I mean, you know, feel free to chime in. Anybody on the panel?
Nah, you're raising good points, so we're just following through.
I think you covered a lot.
Okay, when I came back,
I think Mr. Black Excellence raised a good point. I think he was talking about at some point he would probably be just like Seti and them, but you know, I think the language, he says on his part, the language was a little bit difficult to understand, but it came back again, you know, tried again, and it was easier. And at that point, so I think for most people, it's just because you know, they just used you know, it's a crutch to, you know, to saying that the Medunet has not been deciphered. It's probably just because they're having difficulty, you know, learning the language. And obviously, you know, dealing with Kemet, you know, people want to microwave stuff. And this is one of the things that, you know, you really have to slow down and take your time. So for those people, I think some people, that might actually be one of the things. You notice that a lot, that they just don't understand how the writing system functions and all of that stuff. So then after that, when they get kind of defeated, you know, then they'll be like, it hasn't been deciphered. So I think, you know, you kind of raised a good point there.
Yeah, and see, there's no need for any long, drawn out back and forth with any of these people. This is very simple logic that is not sound. It's flawed logic at the very core. Period. You don't have to go back and forth with anything. It's about edifying and teaching the people so that we can expand the knowledge. And so that's what I mean. We're wasting time going over these things over and over again. We wrote the book. People act like the book doesn't exist. Just get the book. And we're moving it. We're keeping it moving. We're keeping it pushing. We're just moving forward. You know, it's just that simple. Like just a few things that I just said just now will you know, deal with some of the logic behind those claims. The language hasn't been deciphered and things like that, you know. So that's the I mean, you know, so that's my, you know, my, how I feel about all of that. You know, we got to stop playing the games. We have so much work to do. There's so much. Listen, ancient Egypt has a wealth of information that's right there waiting for us. It's right there. Other countries are capitalizing off of it. All these people that go in these archaeological digs and got these museums and stuff like that, you best believe they are studying these things. They have created curriculums out of the study. They're utilizing it. You got people who have used the medical papyri, the various medical papyri, and understand medicine better. You got people who use the mathematical papyri, and understand math and create philosophies about it and everything. And you know, coming up, we have this No Pseudo tour that's going on. As part of the Amara Squad. Amara Squad, we're doing a No Pseudo tour, and at our next library event, I will be giving a presentation on taxonomy, but I'm gonna connect it to ancient Kemet at the event. So if anyone knows about evolution or taxonomic classification, I'm gonna do a presentation on that, but I'm gonna connect it in with ancient Kemet. And the reason why I'm bringing this up now is because people have benefit from Kemet, whether it's directly or indirectly. And that's why even the introduction book, in the introduction to the beginner's book, and I believe the rebuttal book, I say that I use the phrase, you know, whether we realize it or not. Let me just read exactly what I said. Yeah. Let's see what I say. Say so much. You say something so much. Yeah, okay. It says this this is the inspiration behind the making of this book, which is to provide the tools and means to enter the world of ancient Kemet and have a meeting of the minds with the illustrious civilization, society, culture, and people responsible for contributing so much to the world that we are indebted to, whether realized or not. And so that's the point I'm making there, is that people directly and indirectly benefit from the wisdom of ancient Kemet. And for us to sit here and ignore that wisdom all because somebody makes a silly claim that the language hasn't been deciphered, and but still lecture and teach about Kemet, to me that's we got to fix that. That's a problem. That's a problem. And you know, and it's fixable. You know, I'm not saying that it's you know, it's not fixable. It's fixable. You know, just learn the language and then you'll understand. So you understand why Medu Neter is Medu Neter, and you understand what Medu Neter means. Medu Neter is divine inscriptions, and then we could get into what it actually means. You know, what the realities are behind that phrase, and how it changed over time and stuff like that. You understand why we say Tudunk Amen instead of Amen Tudunk. You know, Hikashamau, you know, which is, you know, into his full name. You'll understand why we say Wasamrat Ra Satepen Ra for the throne name of who we call Ramses II. You know, why do we say these things like that? What's another one? What's another famous? What's another famous honorifically transposed phrase that people say? I'm just trying to think of some off the top of my head, but a popular one. We got Hemet Neter or Hem Neter. You hear people say that, Hem Neter. They don't understand that the word Neter is first. If you read it the way it is and you don't know the grammar, you'll be saying Neter Hem, and that would be incorrect. I mean, it's a whole bunch of other ones, but I was thinking of some popular ones. But anyway, so I don't want to go on and on. I think, yeah, if anybody, matter of fact, let me see what the brother Chris did say. Okay, yeah. He's yeah. Okay, so yeah, member of the Seshu group. I'll find the post and I will tag you. All right. So, all right. So good. I'll make sure you get to see that. I would love to take the proficiency exam. How can I find out? Okay, good question. By proficiency exam, what you're talking about is okay, in the course. Matter of fact, I want to repeat this before we go off the air, that I am starting a new class group. So if you're interested in learning the beginner's level of the language, the links are in the description box. You get matter of fact, the first link for the course is you can read about the course and actually register for the course. I'm starting a new class group. The course is 12 weeks long. We meet 2 hours a week. So we meet 1 day per week for 12 weeks. So it adds up altogether 24 hours, but we break it out, space it out for 12 weeks. We meet 2 hours for a particular session. And so I'll be beginning a course, a class group. So if you're interested, sign up, because the way I group the create the class groups is based on the people that sign up. All right, because when I get 3 or more people that sign up, then I will make a schedule and get everything started. You know, so I prefer to get 3 or more people in a group. And so I have simultaneous groups going on. So I'll have a group that meet every Sunday, and then I'll keep up with that group. And I may have another group that meet every Monday. And so that's the way I can keep the groups active and accommodate everybody's scheduling and things like that. So let me know and register or inbox or email. All right. Now I bring that up because someone asked about the proficiency exam. So at the completion of the course, I give a final exam, which is also a proficiency exam. So because the course, I give out certificates. The certificate is a certificate of proficiency. So basically you have gone through the course and you have proven yourself that you are proficient in what you've learned. And so you'll receive a certificate, and that lets everyone know, and yourself and myself know that you have met all the requirements to of the course and everything like that. But now I also offer a proficiency exam to those people who have taken courses elsewhere or may have learned on their own. You know, because I don't want to restrict anybody. So if you want to be certified in the system that we have going on in the courses that we have, then yeah, you could take the proficiency exam, and I will certify you if you pass the proficiency exam. It's 100 questions. And if you learn elsewhere or through another teacher, it's fine. We welcome that as well. But you can become certified in our system with no problem. Okay. And to do that, you go to the same website, the same links and everything like that, because eventually you can sign up, because there's two courses there. If you go to the link, you'll see a course for interactive, and then a course for self-study. So those people who are just interested in taking the proficiency exam, you could sign up for the self-study, because that's basically what you have done. You've studied on your own or learned somewhere else, and you just want to get to the exam and things like that. The exam is open book, so it would be to your advantage, even if you want to go that route, to get the beginner's book as well. All right. So hopefully that covers that. Anything else that I missed? Oh yeah, Tudunk Kara. Yeah, people. So yeah, Hotep, to those who are joining in, just now joining in, we're about to close out, and I don't want to miss anybody's questions or concerns. So if any of you all have just joined us and just tuned in, I know you've missed what we've been talking about, but don't worry about that. If you have any questions about what we deal with, which is the language and Kemet pretty much in general, feel free to ask your question right now. I'm saying, because I don't want to be too long on here. But if you have a question, you want to quickly type your question, or whatever the case is, we'll see if we can handle a couple of them. But if not, anybody else on the panel got anything to add to discussion? Because I am definitely hogging the mic.
None.
So y'all just gonna let MC Iron Lung just be MC Iron Lung, huh?
Now you pretty much covered everything. Oh, okay. Hotep.
Oh, it's a Hotep. Oh, Hotep. All right, good. Okay, Hotep. Yeah. All right. Okay, let me say this while we're here. Let me tell you a little bit about the Seshu Ma'ani Medu Netre as a group. Okay. Because I was asked this just the other day. Now, we went over this before, but I like to say it again so everybody's clear on the Seshu. And so when you take the course, the course and proficiency and becoming certified, that's its own thing. The Seshu Ma'ani Medu Netre as a group, which is us, we're open for new members. Now, but first, I want to say that the Seshu, we are a group. We're not just an internet clique. And there's nothing wrong with being an internet clique. So I don't want to make it sound like that's something bad. But we're not just that, because we are on social media, and we do click up. But we are more than that. We are a group that actually do things. We are taking care of projects. We published a book as a rebuttal to Professor Walter Williams as a group. We're working on translations, our own translations from scratch, from different texts, things like that. So we are actually in the business of writing, and we're producing. So the fruits of our labors will be seen later on, because we're not a microwave. We don't have that microwave mentality at all. So, but I say that to say that our group is a group of doers. We don't need anybody to be interested in joining the group just to say that you belong to a group, you know. So there's a purpose for our group's existence. You know, it's not just to feel good or be considered a you know, a group. And but there's nothing wrong with that. So I don't want to make it sound like it's bad, but us in particular, we are a group of doers. So if you're interested in joining the Seshu Madi Metanetra as a group, most definitely you have to, at the very least, be certified in a beginner's level of the writing system, the Seshu Metanetra. So whether you take the course with me and become certified, or take a course from somebody else, or learn on your own and then take the proficiency exam so I can judge your competency and certify you. At the end of the day, you have to be certified in order to join the Seshu. And you have to, you know, understand what we're about and be, well, you know, interested in joining in the first place. So I just want to, you know, let that be clear. Now, that's just us as a group. Now, you know, as a group, that's what we do. But even if you don't join, you're more than welcome to you know, support, participate in our conversations, participate in our hangouts, you know, just like we're doing right now, and the Facebook group, and you can still learn in the whole nine. All right. So I just want to make that clear. We're a wide open, friendly group, and we pride ourselves off of cultivating good character. That's one thing that's important. So we have two major requirements for the joining of this group, our group. One is you have to show proficiency in the beginner's level at the very least. And two, you have to exercise good character. And we know that we're not all perfect. Everybody, we got little flaws we got to work on, but at the very least, you got to be interested and understand that that's a very important aspect, is building good character. So you have to be humble and willing to change anything you recognize in yourself to be bad character. You know, you can't be this stubborn, hot-headed, what do you call it? I already said stubborn, but you know, these people that are you know, just can't bend, break. That's just not gonna happen. That's just not productive for anybody, for any individual. So anyway, I hope that's there. So I was trying to see if there was any questions of anybody who just came in. And I guess it's not.
Yeah, just quickly to clarify, to join the group that you're talking about, the group, the issue, and not the group page, because that's open to everybody, and then the group that's also open to those who, you know, will be proficient at the language and all that extra requirements.
Okay,
but just to clarify.
Yeah, and I see Bud made a comment. He said, I was hoping just to hang out. Yeah, listen, by all means. So hopefully I wasn't clear. Let me just say it again. What I was speaking to was to join our actual group, not the Facebook group, but us as a group. And we're in the baby stages, because I don't want to call it an organization, but we're in a process of building an institution. All right. And I like to call things what they are, and not, you know, so I don't want to call it organizational institution. As of now, we are a group. And so what I'm saying is to join the group. That's what I was speaking of. But if you want to join our Facebook group, join it. You're welcome to do so. And you're welcome to hang out. You're welcome to hang out like we're doing right now, you know, by all means. So hopefully that didn't confuse anyone, because we have members of the Seshu, and we are a co-ed group. All right. So it's not just men. We are a group of men and women. All right. So we do that. Oh, okay. But he said, you know, I'm joking. He was joking. Yeah, but see, I gotta make it clear, because remember, this is being recorded. It's gonna be archived. So just in case anybody else heard what I said and was probably confused about it, I just want to make it clear. All right. So just wanted to clarify that. All right. And you know, if you're interested in learning the language, trust me, this is easy. It may, you know, we do the Freestyle Fridays to let people know, to reinforce to people, to let them know that this is easy. But it's not something that you can microwave, though. So it takes discipline and staying power. you got to stay the course, but it's not hard though. It's not hard. It's not something that's hard. It's not rocket science. Not, you know, you're not going to build a rocket to get to other galaxies and things like that. All right. Because once you get the principles down, then you know, you pretty much are good to go. All right. So so yeah, so we welcome. Yeah, I see you in the UK. Yeah. If you're in the UK is welcome. Everybody, the world, you know. But let me just share this real quick for those who just popped in. Oh, I don't even have it on up anymore. Okay, I'm just sharing this pyramid scheme again that we have. This is basically a visual of our curriculum. All right, and it should pop up any minute. And so I already went through it, so I'm not going to rehash what I already spoke about. I'm just flashing it to show it again. But we have a lot of work to do. We have to climb this pyramid. We have 3 levels, 3 stages within each level. So it's a total of 9 stages divided into 3 levels. And we know those levels to be different, correspond to different seasons. We have the season of Aket, Peret, and Shamu. And the season of Aket was the flooding, Peret was the seeding and growing, and Shamu was the harvesting season. And those are very, very appropriate titles to correspond to how we are progressing through this knowledge. So you have to create the fertile environment for your mind to, and with all the requirement tools and things and knowledge. Then you plant the seed and you allow it to grow, which is level 2. And then level 3, which is the level of application and applying all that you know, that's the season of harvesting. So you reap what you sow. So you sow at level 2, you create the fertile ground level 1, you sow at level 2, and then you reap what you sow at level 3. So it's very appropriate for the 3 seasons, and the fact that Kemet was an agricultural society based on the 3 seasons as well. All of this stuff is appropriate, and we try to do things with meaning and not just some arbitrary, ambiguous stuff thrown together. So this has a rhyme and reason to it. And if you join our group eventually, then you'll even learn more about even what you're seeing on the screen. All right. So and I think it's a good time for me to mute my mic and shut it down. So anybody have anything to add? Because we're going to definitely close out here. Yes, no, maybe so.
I just want to say it was a great show tonight. Touched on a lot of different things and got a lot of information out. Really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the chat. So,
all right, yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed the chat, and I see we have people chiming in and everything like that. Yeah, and see, we like the interaction, and this platform, the best we can do is through the chat. But like I said, join our Facebook group and let us know you're there. Introduce yourself. You know what I mean? If you're in a Facebook group, introduce yourself. Say, you know, say Hotep. You know, type Hotep just so we know. You know, because people have different Facebook names than they may have on YouTube, so it may not be able to recognize you right away. But do that. Chime in on the conversations. Share some things that you found out or got questions about, or whatever cases. We're all learning, you know. We're all learning. We're on this path to learn. All right. So I don't have anything else, and I believe we can just close out. And we have a tradition to allow Sonat Imiket to bless us with any closing words.
Dua, and yeah, dua to you and to the members of the panel and the chat for making this a really great Friday night. And hopefully, you know, we see you again next week, or other than that, also on the chat. So just to close out, just to remind those who are watching, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube page, you know, feel free to do that, subscribe, and then just make sure that you click on the bell so that you're updated when we have our live shows, because some of them might actually be random and all of that. And so, and please do share the YouTube page or some of the videos that we have, like this one. You know, feel free to share it with others that you may know that might have interest in, you know, in the language. And you know, we also have our website, which is medunurture.com, which is mdw-ntr.com, and there's more information there for those who'd like to learn about the language. And you know, get the book for the beginners classes, and also the one that we've discussed tonight for the rebuttal to the elder Walter Williams on the decipherment of the hieroglyphic writing system. So we have that also on the website, and there's also resource section. So there are some free resources that you can get as well, and there's a community page that you know you can also be a part of as well on the page. So there's a lot. So just go check out the page. And for those who are asking about the Facebook group, I think the link is on the description section of this video. You can find that, and just click on that and then join the group page. And again, for St. Jehudi's website, I think that was the jehudistore.com. So do check it out. It has a lot of really, really, really good stuff. And I can also see somebody asked about an Instagram page. We have an Instagram page. I think that would be let me see. The Instagram page will be under the name Medunurture, which is instagram.com/mdwntr. So then that would be the Instagram page that we're using. And with that, I just like to say once again, duau, and you know, get an affair for those on the, you know, on the night time, and back an affair to those on the morning time. I know we have Mr. Black Excellence in the UK repping, so back an affair to you. And with that, I like to say, Shemem Hotep, go in peace.